Tim Scott is centering his pitch for the presidency around the view that America is not a racist country. Well, we may need to mail the senator a copy of this new book that's out. It's called Stamped from the Beginning, A Graphic History of Racist Ideas in America. Joining me now are the authors of the book, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi and Joel Christian Gill. Dr. Kendi is an Andrew W. Mellon Professor in the Humanities at Boston University. He's also a New York Times best-selling author. Joel is an award-winning historian. He's also a comic artist, an author, and an all-around fly brother. Check him out right there. Welcome to the grill, my brothers. Dr. Kendi, what was your inspiration for doing this project as a graphic novel?
I think it was just another way to bring this important history of anti-Black racist ideas over the course of time to readers. It's a pretty heavy sort of history. It's a dense history. And I thought working with someone like Joel to bring it in comic form with humor, with sarcasm, with really the tradition of Black comedy, I think could reach a whole new group of readers.
Is there a way that like getting the graphic genre out there can appeal and connect and tell a story that a traditional book can't? I mean, Ibram has sold 17 million books this week, right? Everybody got his book. But is there a way that we could get that information in a different way or understand it better when we see it through this different modality?
I think when you think about comics, I often say that comics are the perfect empathy machine because they communicate on a level when we are talking to people with images. People are seeing these images and understanding them on a subconscious level. It's universal. It's absolutely 100% universal that comics sort of talk to people like that. And, like teaching people and giving them the means to create these empathy machines, I think are the thing, and also funny, right? Because I'm a troll and I'm going to make some jokes in there, but to give people that sense of I can relate to this. And because comics do that, I think that's what's important about the message.
Let me follow up with you, though, because to Tim Scott's point, he thinks Black success is the rule and not the exception, which is why his perspective is so bizarre to me. Pointing to former President Barack Obama, current Vice President Kamala Harris, he uses those as examples to support his point. In the book, you talk about President Obama's win. Do you agree that he's a rule and not the exception?
No, I mean, at any point in American history, there have been successful Black people, right? There have always been successful Black people. So pointing out that, President Obama was elected does not negate the fact that there's systemic racism. Pointing out that, that there were Black millionaires or successful Black people in the early part of the 20th century, that doesn't negate that there is like structural racism and terrorism in that part of the world. So pointing, it's kind of like saying my father beat stage 4 cancer, so we shouldn't worry about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a weird thing to like point out the exception to the rule and use that as like, this is why we're not a racist country because Obama got elected, right? But Black people are still getting killed by police officers. Black doctors are still doing to Black women what Black cops are doing, what cops are doing to Black men. So we still have some issues that we haven't dealt with, and electing, President Obama, Tim Scott, or the myriad of other Black politicians in America does not negate that.
Absolutely. Ibram, a lot of people want structural racism to be remedied. At least they say they do. I know very few people who just say they want racism to persist. But getting there is the struggle, the how, the why, the when, all of that. As someone who studies race for a living and who examines change across time, how close are we to an equitable future? Are we closer than we were 20 years ago, 50 years ago? Or is it just taking new forms, the inequality?
In many ways, my answer to your question is yes and no. And so in certain ways, those who have been fighting for a more equitable and just society have been winning in certain ways over the course of the last 20 years. But simultaneously, those who are trying to conserve racism, entrench inequality, have also been winning, and certain policies have been growing more sophisticated over time. And that's why in my work I talk about the progression of racism. And if we only are looking at racial progress, then we're going to ignore the progression of racism, which is insidious and which is maintaining the inequities and injustices that we see day in and day out.
What's the biggest
And just to add to that, Mark, I think it's really important to. I was just going to say, just to add to that, I think it's really important to be on the watch, to be able to watch for the next iteration of those racist ideas, because they always evolve, right? You know, like we're looking at ideas in policing where we're going to set up zones and use drones to start manning people, basically imprisoning people in place, right? That's a modern day version of a plantation. We're going to keep you in this place and we're going to set up these drones and these things. And so if we don't start looking for these things, we're going to be blind to the next new iteration of the racist ideas that are coming.
What's the biggest lesson from the past that we can hang our hopes on, Ibram, when we do this fight for freedom and justice moving forward?
We are constantly being manipulated by those in positions of power to make us believe, particularly Black people, to make us believe that there's something wrong with us. And they're trying to convince us that there's something wrong with us, that there's something wrong with Black people, so we won't resist power, so we won't resist the structure of racism, so we'll accept poverty or segregation or violence as normal. I think that's in many ways the biggest lesson, and every generation of power has sought to do that to Black people.
Powerful ideas, powerful thoughts. We can resist power. We will resist power. We will be successful and victorious if we do the work of political education, of organizing, of thinking, and of teaching. And this book, y'all, gives us a powerful opportunity to learn our history properly. The book is called Stamped from the Beginning, A Graphic History of Racist Ideas in America. Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, Joel Christian Gill, I want to thank y'all for joining me. Everybody, check out the book. It's sold everywhere that books are sold, but as always, we encourage you to purchase it from a local Black-owned bookstore.